Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm DeCorum. This is what matters to me. A quick one today. I'm starting a little bit later in my day than usual. Sleep problems, another matter entirely. Probably talk about that in a different video. But I was asked to talk about Star Trek for an issue. William Shatner has just been the second Star Trek actor to go into space. The oldest Star Trek actor to go into space, and congratulations. That's a sign of so many things in our society and so many things of our time. But one of the people who popularized the genre of science fiction and helped to build the legacy that is Star Trek actually has seen our world from off our world. And that is a sign of the times. No matter how you look at it, no matter what your perspective is on it, it is absolutely something that does call for a little reflection. So taking this to a more personal level, fandoms that have a serial presentation beg comparisons. Doctor Who, James Bond, Star Trek, things where you have a protagonist or someone who is featured primarily in a role, who changes between seasons or series or what have you. People will ask, who is your favorite? Who's your doctor? What's your favorite James Bond? Who is your favorite Star Trek captain? And I remember the days back when that was just a Kirk or Picard, but now you've got more choices. So I thought I would discuss my choice for who my favorite Starfleet captain is. And it's going to be a minute because I'm not sure. Now, seriously, I have a favorite doctor. And it is not because I believe he portrayed the role better than every other doctor or was significantly more iconic. He wasn't even my first doctor. My first doctor was John Pertwee. When I started watching on PBS with my folks back in the 70s, for feck's sake. But my favorite doctor is Tom Baker. I was not old enough to appreciate the role of the Doctor when I first saw it. When I saw John Pertwee, I enjoyed the show. There were monsters and cars and people driving around and explosions. So it started my mind working down these lines. I was old enough to appreciate the Doctor years later when I got back to it, and the next series had come on PBS in a different state. And Tom Baker was the Doctor that they started the series with. Because Tom Baker, looking back over time, I love me. Peter Davison was fine. Colin Baker was awful. Sylvester McCoy was great. Paul Gant, a small time that he had, was a perfectly acceptable doctor. Did a great job with that role. Christopher Eccleston, loved him. David Tennant, loved me some Tennant. Matt Smith, big Matt Smith fan. Capaldi, I even like Jodie Whittaker. All of them. They're really good individual takes on the character. Tom Baker is the actor who showed me, as Neil Gaiman would eventually say, that just because something is funny, that does not mean it is also not dangerous. Tom Baker took this character, made him a little clownish, gave him the style that was disarming and funny and bright and cheerful and engaging, and you didn't piss him off. Because when you pissed him off, you were done. And I like that in the character, that extreme dichotomy and he's there to help. He's absolutely there to help. Let me help out. Don't shoot at those people. Stop that. Stop that or I'll end you. Now you're ended. That's all your fault. There's a lot of Tom Baker and Uncle Drac. my favorite Bond, still to this day, just because of the series of movies he was in. Roger Moore, a long running Roger Moore. Nothing against almost any other Bond. And you know what? No, let me. It is not George Lazenby's fault that he was Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That was not a script that was going to give you an actor who's going to survive the role. Um, that as iconic as the movie is and as important it is to Bond's history, uh, the last 5 minutes will, sorry, you can't be Bond anymore. I can't watch Bond go through what you just went through and still think of you as Bond. Um, Connery was a good Bond. Lazenby didn't do a terrible job, just had a bad script. Um, Timothy Dalton, same thing as Lazenby. He did not get the best scripts. He was a perfectly acceptable Bond. Loved him in the role, but his scripts were not the best. Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig. I love Daniel Craig's Bond. Just that edge. But Roger Moore again. His movies were campy and they were weird and kitschy and there was all this childlike stuff in it, things that made that series the sense of humor and the toyetic gizmos. But Moore was fucking dangerous, and that showed. So you had that combination of, well, let's do some fanciful things with rockets and boats, and then let's make love to six people in the lobby of this hotel, and then let's go murder the bad guy because that's what I do. Yeah. Not a lot of people think of Moonraker highly in the Bond series. I love Moonraker because that's more at a little past his peak, but it is peak more Bond. The actor is a little past his peak. The character peaked in Moonraker, as far as I'm concerned. So, with the strong opinions on those series, let's talk about Star Trek. Oh God, Kirk was my first Starfleet captain. Like most people my age, because he was the only Starfleet captain at the time. Um, and I love me some Kirk. Kirk is a sign of his times, like Sean Connery's Bond is a sign of his times, or John Pertwee's daughter or doctor, sign of the times in which they came up. There's a few problems with Kirk's character viewed through a modern lens, but in the day, when you look at the science fiction characters that I normally follow, James Retief from Keith Lumber's Retief series, or James DeGrees from Harry Harrison's Stainless Steel Rat series, that little bit of a rogue and a scoundrel in there amongst your heroism, such as it is. Uh, Kirk fit that role really well. He had his darker side, as they demonstrated in the series. He relied on his darker side every so often. He tempered it with his lighter side, and through discipline, that was a well-examined character. Shatner portrayed him as well as anyone possibly could, made the role iconic, and I like me some Kirk. Picard, an entirely different take. I think deliberately an entirely different take on a Starship captain. And, Patrick Stewart, just an amazing actor, Shakespearean chops. He'd already been in Dune. And his very controlled, very erudite and intelligent, very disciplined character still had more than one edge, but I wasn't as enthralled with Picard's edge. It wasn't something that was brought up as much as Kirk's, and Picard was in a gentler time. Not my favorite. I love the character, but not my favorite. Oh, Benjamin Sisko. Benjamin Sisko, the Starfleet captain who punched out Q. Ah, God. All edge, no humor. No, that there was a little bit of a bright side because Avery Brooks had that smile and they used it every so often. But even as the series went on, he just turned into Hawk. And I didn't mind that because the stuff that Benjamin Sisko went through would do that to anyone to survive all the things that were dropped on top of that person, becoming the dark and angry individual that he was while retaining his bright core. He always had that bright core, but there were things that had to get done and he could live with them. So good. Janeway, like Brosnan, or like Dalton and Lazenby in the Bond series, Catherine Janeway is a captain who was more hampered by scripts and the situation than by the character. We were not seeing, Kirk was in his element. Kirk was 100% in his element, born to be a Starfleet captain and just doing it every day. And the harder stuff that's what he was there for. He had his ship for what the ship was designed to do and out there doing it. Beautiful. Same with Picard. Absolutely. This is my ship. It is the best equipped thing in the entire galaxy. I can handle any situation. The ship, this crew, I'm good. I'm out here doing the mission that I was sent to do. Sisko, you know what? Deep Space Nine, it's not a Starfleet vessel. It's got some problems, but it's a station. It's got a lot of resources. This is what I'm sent to do. This is my mission. I can do this. Janeway is in a fast pursuit vessel that now has to do an extended range generational mission. Janeway was kicked out of her element, literally just thrown all the way across the galaxy in a ship not designed for that distance, that speed, or that much exploration. They bent the Voyager to that task. It's a lander, for God's sake. The thing can planetary land. That's not a long distance space vessel. That's jump from planet to planet. That's a pursuit vessel. A warship pursuit vessel. It's got the quantum torpedoes on board. Janeway was not in her element. She was never in her element. For 10 minutes at the beginning of the first season, first episode, she was in her element. And what you saw that entire series was a captain under stress and over her head. And as much as she tried to rise to it, Catherine Janeway had the edge that I like. She really did. Fear was afraid of Catherine Janeway, and I really appreciate that. She had tremendous strength and tremendous power, and she was so out of her depth. She never let it show, but we knew. So I can't really give Catherine Janeway the same evaluation I can give any other Starfleet captain, because Catherine Janeway was never shown to me nicely framed in her spot on the wall. She was always out in the alley clawing her way back in. Archer, talking about Captain Archer would mean talking about Enterprise, and I don't want to talk about Enterprise, so I'm not going to. And the new Trek, I haven't gotten the subscription services that allow me to follow it properly. I've followed online descriptions, and a friend of mine gave me week by week commentary. Beautiful, thank you, Mike. But I don't have the in-depth and thoughtful contemplation of new Trek's personnel. I like Saru as a captain because I like Doug Jones. Not because I'm particularly enthralled with Saru's character. It's a perfectly good character. It deserves to be well explored. It deserves the exploration of that the captain seat offers a character. But I just don't have the time, effort, or subscription to properly evaluate it. So that leaves my choices as Kirk, Picard, Sisko, Janeway. It's not an easy choice. I mean, you can probably tell by my descriptions coming up. Very likely, I just gotta give it to Kirk. And again, I understand that Captain Kirk is a problematic figure in fiction these days, and that they even addressed it in Next Generation. They addressed Kirk's cowboy diplomacy, but in the days of that series, when you look at the stories around it and what was happening in the galaxy and what he had to deal with, he was the cowboy that we needed at the time. You know, is that how Picard would have handled it? No, because Picard's an entirely different captain. Kirk embodied the seat of the captaincy. We judge how fit a captain is by using Kirk as a yardstick. And it's not just that iconic nature of the character. It's not just that this is what a Starfleet captain is that informs my decision. I like Kirk. I like a man who understands that force is not always the way, that sometimes you have to address things with nuance and logic and a certain amount of compassion. You have to look at things from an angle, not of how do I destroy this, but how do I rise above that urge to destroy? Kirk was tested. Kirk was literally tested time and time again, and every superior alien force, every mysterious mist out in space, every emotion-sucking vampire glowing ring of special effects that he ever came across, he overcame. Didn't beat them all, didn't destroy them all, didn't beam them all into a sun. No matter how much he probably should have a couple of times. No. The speeches are often looked at as a negative in Kirk, that, the man would monologue at a drop of a pin. But when you look at the substance of most of the speeches in those circumstances, he was not only reaffirming his own desire to rise above the barbarism he was occasionally forced to engage in, but he was doing those speeches to inspire the crew around him, whether they were his crew or someone else's. He was speaking to the better part of their natures from the better part of his own. He never failed to acknowledge he wasn't all better nature. He had bad parts. He had parts that, sometimes you need and sometimes you don't, but I'd rather, have them and not need them than need them and not have them. But that's not what he's going to go to when everything is down. You could apply force, or you could talk it out. You could go straight to red alert and start hitting things with phasers and photons, or open hailing frequencies. Let's talk. He would try to talk from a position of strength. He would use those situations to position himself such that he could hopefully avoid the violence. But it was a space show and it was the 60s and you had to blow some stuff up because bang, pow, zap. But in an era of bang pow zap, and that was the era that we were in. That was, you look at the movies of the time, you look at the other television series, look at the westerns. Star Trek was sold as a western in space, and westerns meant, westerns is an entire series of Chekhov's gun. There are guns because everyone's wearing a gun, and by the end of that episode, someone's gonna pull a trigger. Star Trek was in that era where there's ray guns, you gotta shoot the ray guns, you gotta have a special effects budget, there's gotta be monsters. But in that era, Kirk displayed that you could rise above bang pow zap and sometimes settle things just by expressing your desire to appeal to a better nature. Every Star Trek captain after Kirk would do the same thing in some way, shape, or form, in different ratios. Picard would go much, much further to express that nature before he engaged in violence. Picard was nevertheless just as accomplished with the violence, but he had a much longer fuse than Kirk. Sisko had a much shorter fuse than Kirk. You would still really hope that he didn't have to get to the end of that fuse, but oh my God, do not light Sisko's fuse, whatever you do. Janeway? I can't really judge Janeway by this because, again, no matter what Kirk was put through, overall, he was in his ideal situation and Janeway never was. Janeway often tried her best to appeal to that higher nature, but then people would dick with her for no reason, and everyone in that quadrant was just the biggest jackhole, and she had to lay down the pimp hand because the pimp hand needed some laying down. There was no rising above to your better nature because every time she did, someone hit her right in that higher nature, and then she'd give them a quantum torpedo or just run because all those problems would eventually just have to be behind her anyway. Kirk, because he presented, surprisingly, one of the more balanced aspects of that captaincy. Well, thank you for following me along in this particular ramble. I'm interested in your opinions. I mean, I know this is one of those internet things where you can light up a chat room with who's your favorite Star Trek captain or why Picard's better than Kirk, yada, yada, yada. But I'm actually interested in your opinions. Do you have a favorite Star Trek captain? Do you have let's open this up. Favorite Doctor, favorite Bond, favorite Starship captain. And when I go to favorite Starship captain, I'm talking about Star Trek, but you know what? If you want to open it up to other series, I'm interested in hearing what that would be. So, if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. Let me know what your opinions are on your favorites in the comments below, please. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, other things you'd like to hear me address, questions you'd like me to answer, go ahead and leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me a comment. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Feel free to hit the subscribe bell. If you do, you might want to hit the notification bell so that you're alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum, this is What Has Mattered to Me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.